3, 2, 1. Well, it sounds like baseball season is right around the corner. We're about a month away from the high school season starting. As we film this today, college baseball is underway. So as we take an eye toward the high school baseball season, I couldn't think of a guy I wanted to bring on who can kind of coach us up, get us up to date on what's going on in the high school baseball scene in the San Gabriel Valley. And we'll touch the San Fernando Valley, as well as my good friend and pal, Les Lukach from PrepBaseballReport.com. This is the screen right here that's in my background. I see Les everywhere. He's got a stopwatch, a speed gun, and a video camera. What else can go wrong, right, Les? You are a friend and a pal, and I am so appreciative that you've taken the time to speak with me. First off, it's good to see you, my friend.
Hey, man, likewise, James. What a treat this is for me. You sent me a message and asked me if I want to be a part of this, and I go back to that time about 3 years ago or so, where we
Yes, sir.
Arcadia High School, and I've been a big fan of yours for years, and this is obviously a treat for me. So I'm thrilled to have the opportunity. Most importantly, not only to get to see you, but to talk baseball. Right? I mean, you mentioned that college baseball kicks off today, and we're really hopeful that the high school baseball season, at least here in SoCal, will kick off in about a month. And this is exciting, man. It's the buildup, right? We pretty much lost all of last season, so just really hopeful for the coaches, the players. And the parents, and the schools, because there's a lot of pride that comes with high school sports, as you know.
Before we get started, Les, and I'm going to throw, and this is something we're going to go off script here a little bit, which happens to me once in a while. On your site, which is fantastic, I think, for any high school baseball fan or even a college baseball fan, you have really upped your game with the analytics part of it. Do you see that just becoming bigger and bigger as we go forward here?
Yeah, I think it's one of those kind of downhill trains at this point. Like I just don't see it disappearing, right? And it's going to trickle down even lower into the lower levels. I mean, we're seeing it. We have partnered with TrackMan, which is the global leader in ball flight analysis. We've partnered with Blast Motion. They're the global leader in swing analysis. We've partnered with Visual Edge that does a lot of visual testing that MLB teams use. Pro Pitch AI. They do kind of some overlay on the mechanics of pitchers. Technology is not going anywhere, right? I mean, you can go to a high school game and you'll see some stuff at certain fields where you say, wow, it's pretty interesting. For example, Jay Serra has a TrackMan unit on their field. And it's no coincidence, they got that about 3-4 years ago. And you look at some of the pitchers that have come through there since they got that. So it's a phenomenal tool for development. I don't believe that it's the end all be all, but if used properly, it certainly is going to help players.
I had a question asked of me the other day where I was just talking with a friend of mine who is you still find people who are kind of, I don't want to say skeptic, but they are a little bit skeptical. At the end of the day, they still ask, does the eyeball effect still account? Does it, does the eyeball effect still work here in baseball a little bit, you think?
The eyeball test will never go away. The instincts of a scout or of an evaluator can never be taken for granted because, we see it at some of our events, right? Some of these kids that have the higher tech numbers maybe aren't necessarily the most talented players on the field. Maybe they just developed physically a little quicker than other kids. So the scouts, I don't think will ever be taken out of the game. They're critical to the evaluation of players. And most importantly, they can tell you what the numbers can't, right? A kid can have a long swing, but he can still make good contact and have a 95-mile an exit velo in batting practice. But that long swing's not going to play when he's facing 88 to 92 miles an hour in a game. So that type of evaluation, in my opinion, at least, will never be replaced by data and analytics and numbers.
So it's just part of the process, just like in football, they have the combine when you have the 40 and the show. It's just part of a bigger puzzle that a college coach has to put together, right?
It's a tool. It's simply, that's all it is, right? It's a tool. You're trying to construct the best possible baseball player you can as a coach, or you're trying to draft the best possible baseball player you can as a scout. And you use these as tools, right? If you're a coach, you can say, okay, this is what the data is telling us about your curveball, or your changeup, or your swing. Even this is how we're going to fix that, or this is how we're going to improve on that. If you're a scout, you see these numbers. Maybe they don't jive with what your eyes tell you, but your gut tells you, hey, that kid can play. We're going to take him, right? Or vice versa. So it's just the tool, right? I don't think it's going to ever replace coaching. It's never going to replace scouting, in my opinion. It's just another tool to put in your tool chest in the development of a player.
Okay. You answered a lot of questions for me here, Bud, and I appreciate that. It's something I think everyone wants to, sometimes you get hung up with the numbers. And again, it's always the eyeball test at the end of the day for me. Can this kid compete? Can he play, and things of that sort? And
right. And it's
an imperfect science.
It's those things that you can't see, right, James? You've been around long enough to see plenty of baseball games, right? You can see if a kid hustles on a ground ball that he's going to be thrown out. Is he going to be thrown out by a half a step or 4 steps? It's his decision, right? The numbers can't tell you that. Even if the ball was smoked at the third baseman, the numbers can't tell you that. They're not going to tell you about a player's instincts, or, his gut, his heart. All those things are critical when it comes to evaluating players, right?
You're right. All right, let's get to work, Les.
Cool.
Got a little bit of time here, so let's get right to it. Let's talk about let's first go to the San Gabriel Valley, so to speak, which, again, I've always told people, football may be the pastime of the San Gabriel Valley, but baseball sure is the passion. And you just see it. I just see it every year when it comes to signing day with so many baseball players that get signed to big time universities and all that. So let us start with, I think, the team that, now I don't do the baseball rankings for the area. Freddie Robledo does it, but it doesn't take a genius for me not to realize that, Damien will probably, if they're not the top team, they will be in the top 2 or 3 for sure. But boy, when you look at this roster of players you've got ranked in your top 200, and I want to put a disclaimer here, folks, we're just using the ratings, the players that were ranked in the PBR rankings for the class of 2021, 22, and 23. So we're just using that as a base. We'll start talking about more of the players with the various coaches down the line as we get closer to the season. But Les, you've got 7 Damien players ranked on your big board for the top for the class of 2021, 22, and 23. Just amazing. And it starts with the area's top ranked player in Maddie Clark, who's going to Arizona.
Yeah, center fielder. I mean, he can figuratively do it all, right? I mean, he can go get the ball, he can track it. The swing is improved. He's physical. He's a big, strong guy. Looks like a safety playing center field. My understanding is that they tried to get him to play football, I guess, a couple of years ago at Damien. Just a really good player, and more importantly, a really good kid. A yes sir, no sir type guy. He has seen his stock rise just from the fall because of what the bat's done. There's obvious power in the bat. But it's starting to show a little more consistently.
You also have, and let's just touch some of these guys here real fast. Caden Muller is going to Long Beach State. Robert Manser to New Mexico. Dylan Alanis is going to UNLV, and Daniel Barrera, another, he comes from a great family of pitchers. He's going to Pacific. He was a second team all area pick for us 2 years ago. Just talk about those guys quickly.
Yeah, the strength up the middle for Damien is pretty evident, right? I mean, you got Maddie Clark up the middle, and then you can pick your pitcher, right, for the day. Like you just mentioned, 3 Division I arms, in Moeller and Alanis and Barrera, right? But then, the transfer of Robbie Mansour can't be understated, because he is a sure-handed middle infielder who played a lot of third base over at San Dimas. But he has a spot there at shortstop for Damien this year. Recently committed to New Mexico. He's a guy that I'm a big fan of and have been since his sophomore year. So Damien is pretty loaded up the middle. You got Alec back there too. So I mean, they're really strong top to bottom. Defensively, what will be intriguing will be to see is how the pitching plays out and how the bats come alive.
Talk to me about these 2 class of 2023 players here, Les. Christian Greeno, who's committed to UC San Diego, or I'm sorry, just University of San Diego, I should say, and Tyler Daly, who's so far uncommitted, but he, as a first baseman, looks pretty good.
Yeah, Daly's got some serious upside there with the bat, but Greeno is the guy that you're going to be hearing a lot of. I was talking to Matt Clark's dad last year when I was at a game, and he told me that Matt and Christian have really kind of hit it off, and it's kind of a mentor-mentee kind of relationship there. And so that can only bode really well for Damian in the future. I would imagine Greeno slides into center field once Clark graduates and moves on. But he's a guy that, limitless upside, can run, can hit, can throw, and has a really, really keen understanding of the game, which is something you don't really see a whole lot in, last year, at least as a freshman.
Talking with Les Lukach from PrepBaseballReport.com. Let's go to another team in the East San Gabriel Valley that is just a power, and that's Bishop Amat. Joe Hawker does a great job over there. 4 players on the roster that you've got here that are ranked. Let's talk about the 3 seniors. I'm a big fan of Isaiah Muniz, who's signed with Cal State Fullerton. I think the kid can play. I think Tyler White is another player who's got big time potential. Daniel Briones, I know, is just an outstanding catcher. I would be interested to hear from your perspective on Briones on the offensive side of the ball, because there were some within the program that wanted to see his bat pick up a little bit, his offensive production pick up a little bit. So let's talk about those 3 guys. We should mention, by the way, that Muniz and Tyler White were both second-team all-area picks last year for Freddie in the Tribune area. So go right ahead, buddy.
Yeah, let's start with Briones. I mean, I think he's one of the best defensive catchers in the state in his class. It's catch and throw is outstanding. He receives with soft hands. He stays low. He works low to high. If there has been one knock on him, it has been the bat and the consistency of it. We had him at the pro case in the summer, and he showed the bat he showed flashes with the bat, a really good BP in the game. He showed a little more consistent approach with the bat. So things are trending upwards for him in that regard. The other guys you mentioned, Isaiah Muniz is I think, we talked about limitless potential with Christian Greeno. I saw Muniz, in the opening day doubleheader against Sherman Oaks Notre Dame last year, and he absolutely dealt. Was really good. We invited him to the pro case last summer. He came. He had shed about 25 pounds. He looked phenomenal. Fastball, the velocity had ticked up. Here's a guy, James, who won't turn 17 until after the draft. So he is essentially a year ahead of everybody. And when it comes to the MLB draft, they want to get him as young as they can. So, that's going to play a significant factor in whether or not he decides to go to Cal State Fullerton or not. I think he'd be best served if he did. He would get, phenomenal coaching there from those guys and continue to improve his body and things of that nature while being close to home and playing in front of a home crowd, so to speak. And, the last guy you talked about there was Tyler White, the outfielder, can do everything for Amat. Could go get it. He can throw, he can hit. We invited him to the pro case. He was being hampered a little bit by a hamstring issue or something with his leg, couldn't run. So he ended up not coming, but he's a guy that I think has every opportunity when he gets to Long Beach State, if that's the route he decides to go, to step in and have an opportunity to play significant amount of innings there for the Dirtbags his freshman year. One guy, I don't know if you mentioned him or not, but the shortstop, Frankie Perales, one of my favorite players. You talk about slick feeling shortstops. He is what my colleague Shooter Hunt would call a prototypical SoCal shortstop. He can do everything defensively. He looks like he is filled out a little bit physically, which bodes well for the bat. He's a left-handed hitting shortstop who can simply do everything defensively that you ask him to do. The question will be is how much has the bat progressed? And again, this is where the need for a high school season for kids like this is really significant.
He is a class of 2022 prospect, if I'm not mistaken, Les. He also plays for the Eastern Prime travel ball team. I will say this, I did watch the video of him that you guys have online, and I think my first note was defensively, he looked really good.
Yeah, no question. He's a prototypical SoCal shortstop, like I said, and he can get it done defensively for sure. And you just kind of hope that the bat has picked up a little bit and can match the defense.
Another longtime power in the East San Gabriel Valley for baseball is South Hills. Darren Murphy, the coach there now, always does a great job. Always has a prospect or two. He's got one who's going to be on the Dodger roster for the spring, which is Jacob
Jacob
Amaya is
Amaya.
he's on the tryout roster to make the big roster, so to speak. Let's talk about two other underclass players here, so to speak, and let's start with Matthew Lorenzano, a class of 2022 prospect who's committed to Long Beach State.
You know, you always want to be strong up the middle, and South Hills is strong up the middle with Lorenzano and Rosales because, I mean, these guys are interchangeable parts, right? In terms of defense, I mean, both are very, 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 very good. Different approaches at the plate. Lorenzano is a little bit of a bigger bat, can swing it, whereas Rosales is more of a patient hitter. We had him out at the future games with us in Georgia, and he was like I think he got 2 hits and 8 at bats. But he had 5 walks. So he was 2 for 3 with 5 walks, and he ended up scoring, I want to say 4 or 5 runs for us. So those little things that are going to carry him. But with Lorenzano, I think the bat is a little bit more prominent at this point, both very good defensively. And just one note on Amaya. I just want to share this really quickly if I could. Going into his senior year, he was invited to the 18U trials that were held out here at Cal State Fullerton that year. He was there, in my opinion, was the best shortstop on the field, and was not selected for that 18U team that went out and won a gold medal. To this day, I rail on people that, about that because it was simply unfair, man. He was the best player on the field.
Sometimes, it's opinions, right? Yep. Someone has an opinion, someone else has an opinion, and whoever wins out at the end of the day gets the selection, so to speak. Quick note on Lorenzano, he's also a pitcher. He last year, he was part of a 3-pitcher rotation that no-hit Covina before the season was shut down. So we know he can pitch on the mound a little bit. And Marcos Rosales is the other player, folks, that Les is talking about. He's a class of 2023 player. And I mentioned Jacob Amaya because those inside the South Hills program believe he has the same similar traits as Jacob does. Now he plays for the California Blues travel ball team. And one of the things I think could be a knock list, and maybe I'm wrong, he's not a big guy, is he?
He's not a big guy, but we're seeing that it is not really significant anymore as it used to be maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Gotcha.
He's a strong guy. He's not a small, weak kid. That's for sure. He's put together pretty well. But you have to take into account all the tools, right? And obviously physicality is important, but the tools play, and that's the most important part.
These two teams are technically not in our area, but I wanted to hit them real fast because they kind of, we get to see a lot of them when they do the crossover, when they play teams within our area. The first one is Chino Hills. That Chino Hills area just seems like it's just truckload of talent out there. It doesn't matter what sport it is, but they've got a couple of guys here, class of 2021 kids here, Les, and Cole Holwath, who I believe is your highest ranked unsigned player on your big board, and infielder outfielder Riker Billingsley, who's going to UCR, signed with UCR. Just a few words. I do believe with Billingsley, he was a member of the Arsenal, the San Gabriel Valley Arsenal, which is one of the top travel ball programs in the area. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Cole Howarth, first baseman can do what you ask him to do. We had him with us at the Future Games a couple of years ago. Really impressed with the bat. It's really a mystery, how he's still available. I think it's the position and the profile, but he can do a lot of really good things with the bat. He can bunt, he can, hit and run, he can hit for power, moves well around the bag at first base. Just one of those guys, I think, that is stuck because of the position at this point. Combine the position and COVID and everything else. But shifting over to Riker Billingsley, infielder, outfielder, we've had a few events, and Dad obviously is the head coach over at Roosevelt and was the head coach at Chino Hills there for a while, and Kyle Billingsley, and he, he's taught his son well. Riker is a very good ball player, a little bit on the undersized piece too, but I think he's going to fit in perfectly at UC Riverside, where he should have an opportunity to play early and often.
Let's just go down the road to Ayala High School. Again, another high school, another program perennially puts out prospects. They've got 21 players who have signed, and outfielder Cole Konarski and catcher Jacob Badawi, who I absolutely like. This kid can play. I've seen this kid multiple times. Big fan of this kid. And then you've got a 2022 prospect in Troy Mccain, who's a Cal Poly commit. You like him a lot too, huh?
Yeah, I like all three of these guys, and Coach Vogt is loaded in the underclass too. So, I mean, we could have just had a whole segment on Ayala alone. But Cole Koniarski, speedy, athletic outfielder. He still has a very projectable frame that can add significant amount of strength. The bat is pretty good. It's consistent. There is some area for improvement with the bat, but the defense and the ability to run as well as he does and the arm strength can't be undersold there. Jacob Badawi is one of the finest young men that you'll ever have an opportunity to speak with. He's an outstanding catcher, defense first catcher, can play in the outfield as well. But the bat is also very prevalent with him. Was also a really good football player there at Ayala, is my understanding. And then Troy Mccain looks like a football player playing in the outfield for them. Saw him as a freshman at one of our events, was a little intrigued by him. He has made significant improvements with his bat. And he's always been pretty physical and strong. And now the improvements he's made with the bat are resulting, in louder contact, home runs, harder hit balls. And he just has a more consistent approach with the bat too. All three of those guys headline a really deep and talented Ayala team for Coach Vogt.
Okay. One of the programs is just so I just love watching them play because they're so consistent year in and year out and get great coaching. Is over at Glendora High School. Got a couple of guys here who you've got in your rankings, and 2021 prospect Johnny Valdez, who signed with UC Santa Barbara, and Braden Woolridge, who comes from a family of athletes. It's one of my all-time great families, sort of speaking. He's committed to San Diego State. Looks like they're good up the middle again here, Les.
Yeah, no doubt. Johnny Valdez, another guy we had at the pro case, can also pitch and spins it really well on the mound, and touches 90, 91, and is really consistent there. Slick fielding shortstop, again, one of those guys that's kind of your prototypical SoCal shortstop. He can hit a bit. He's got a little, opposite field approach, but, he can put the ball down. He can put it in play. He's got some strength behind it. And then Braden Woolridge, as you said, comes from a family of athletes. I remember seeing him his freshman year against Ayala, ironically enough, when his brother was a senior before he committed to Cal State Fullerton. And my eyes always kept going to the younger Woolridge, and it was like, okay, who's this guy, right? Like, and then I was told, hey, he's only a freshman. It's like, oh, wow, okay. So, San Diego State's definitely getting a really good one in Braden there, because he can do it all, right? I mean, he's a runner. He can hit. He can really hit, and he's an above average defensive outfielder too.
Bonita, Ryan Marcos does a great job of turning around the program over there, and I was really pleased to see that you ranked Luke Mistone. I think this kid is going to be a really good player, and I think he's got a huge upside. Before they shut down the season last year, he had a huge performance against Glendora, and they beat him 4-1. I think you were out there. I think you might have filmed him, so to speak, Les, but I know that the program just thinks the world of this kid.
Yeah, and he's a really talented player. I think this is a guy where, if I'm the coaches at Cal State Fullerton, it's kind of like, hey, stop talking about this guy, because he's one of those guys who, is going to potentially, make it on campus, and I think thrive there. It's a loose, whippy arm. It's clean actions. He's able to repeat them. He scuffled a little bit with command that day that I saw him last spring. But I mean, I'm sure, those things are fixable. There's nothing that's a red flag with anything, whether it's mechanics, delivery, or character, that would make you say, hey, whoa, let's pump the brakes here a little bit. But I think he's a guy that, like you said, Coach Marcos over at Bonita, I'm sure he's really, really high on him, because he's a frontline pitching arm for him, right? And he's going to be a frontline arm in that league. And he potentially, pitcher of the year type stuff in that league.
San Dimas, again, another program. You just talk about that little cluster in the East San Gabriel Valley. You just got players all over the place. Mike Regan, longtime coach over at the school, does a great job. Ryan Kim going to Cal Baptist, but I think, and I put this out on Twitter the other day, and boy, did this thing kind of just take a life of its own, so to speak. They have a 2024 prospect in Kaysen, and I'm going to try to pronounce his last name correctly, Consarinia, who is a commit to UCLA. From all reports, and he plays for the West Covina Dukes. From all reports, Les, this kid is the real deal.
Very much so. I've seen him a couple times, and the first thing that you notice is that he doesn't play like a 14-year-old freshman. He doesn't carry himself like a 14-year-old freshman, and that goes a long way, right? We talked about the eyeball test earlier, right? It's those things where you're able to kind of see those things pre-game, but again, very high-level defensive player, has a very good understanding of what he's doing at the plate. Lacks a little bit of strength naturally. He's 14, but you can see some really positive and encouraging things in terms of, manipulating the barrel and controlling the barrel through the zone. The hands really work. The feet really work defensively. He's going to be a player you're going to be hearing a whole lot about the next 4 years. We talked a little bit about Ryan Kim, power hitting third baseman. Those guys seem to grow on trees out in your area. And, Ryan Kim's kind of the next in line there. I think he's going to thrive at Cal Bap. The coaching staff there at Cal Bap is, I'm sure, eager to get him on campus, because what you're getting is a kid who can handle the position, who doesn't need to be moved to first base or an outfield position, and can certainly handle the bat.
I think they do a great job over there, and I know it's going to be one of those dogfights again in the Valley Vista League. So that's the East San Gabriel Valley. So we're going to take the trek now down the 210. We're going to go to my neck of the woods now, which is the West San Gabriel Valley, where we play ball out here too. We got some good players out here. We're going to stop over first at Arcadia High School with my man Nick Lemus. I just think the world of the guy. He knows what he's doing. Got a couple of 2021 players here, and Michael Easter, who's going to Hawaii Pacific, and pitcher Casey Spencer, I believe, is a transfer from LaSalle, who's going to San Jose State. I made Michael Easter a second-team all-area pick in 2019, less because this kid can play.
Let me just echo your sentiments on Coach Lemus, man. Phenomenal guy. I love him. But yeah, Mikey Easter, another guy we had at the pro case. The big question with him, I think, is where does he play? Is he a catcher? Is he a first baseman? Is he an outfielder? I think Hawaii Pacific is at least the big question amongst Division I schools and scouts. That was kind of the question on Mikey, is where does he play? I think he's a pretty good catcher. I would hate to waste him at first base. That seems rough, but he's just a little too athletic for me to be kind of standing around at first base. He's pretty good in the outfield, which is where he was playing when I met you out at Arcadia High School, his freshman year. And the bat is showing more consistency. That's been a little bit of a question on him, and it's showing a little more consistency just from what I saw on scout ball in the fall. I think he's got a phenomenal opportunity at Hawaii Pacific to go there, step in, play right away, and play for a long time there. And then the other player you mentioned, Casey Spencer, I believe you're right. I believe he is a transfer from LaSalle. Strike thrower. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to, right? I mean, he throws strikes with 2 pitches, and he's got feel for a third. Not the biggest guy, not the most overpowering guy. He's a mid to kind of 83, 87-ish type arm, who with some physicality and some continued development, may be able to get up there to 89, 91. At San Jose State, he should have an opportunity to thrive, though, given that new coaching staff's kind of belief in development.
Another player in my neck of the woods is from Flintridge Prep High School, which kind of, they're in the prep league, so they don't always consistently play the top level of talent. Now, I come with a little bit of a bias here. I do a lot of the roundups for our paper every night, and so you just combing through box scores and everything else, and it just seemed like when Spencer plays, he's always has a big day in the prep league. He's 3 for 5, or he does something really big, pitches big on the mound, shutouts and everything else. I did see him once play. He's a very good player, Les, and he's going to UC San Diego. He's committed to there as a class of 22 prospect. Kind of fascinated by your thoughts here of him.
Yeah, I really like him on the mound. We had him at a tournament. He was in one of our PBR tournaments 2 summers ago, going into his, I guess his sophomore year it was. It was low to mid 80s, but it's kind of the funky left-hander. He's tall, he's gangly. You're just kind of arms and elbows coming at you. And, and it was just really hard to see. And you're kind of like, wow, I mean, this kid's really effective at 82, 83 miles an hour, and then a, loopy curveball at the time, but that's all been improved upon and elevated. That 82, 83 now is, 85, 87. The curveball's not so loopy. It's a little tighter. The changeup has improved significantly. I'm fairly certain UCSD has committed him as a pitcher. He'll be a two-way guy, and like you said, in that prep league where you should thrive. But once he gets down to San Diego at UCSD, he's going to be a pitcher only, I would imagine. But he's a guy, again, with the addition of 20 to 25 pounds that could realistically happen in the next 24 months for this young man, he could position himself to maybe have to make a decision whether he's going to go to UCSD or not.
Gotcha. Upside. I think that's the key word for him.
Yes.
If you're using those type of words there. All right, so let's go to the Whittier area. And now again, we play ball is play. I cover the Whittier area too, and it's very intense baseball out there. Let's start with probably the top ranked program for the last 4 or 5 years, and that's La Mirada, coached by my man Jimmy Zern. Very competitive guy. I'll just leave it at that. And this is going to be a different year this year, Les, with La Mirada, because this is life after Jared Jones. He is in the pros. He's doing this thing with the Pirates. Let's start with a couple of 2022 prospects here with Noah Rodriguez and Andrew Pyle. I want to make a couple of notes here. First off, with Noah Rodriguez, I remember at the start of the year last year, the buzz on this kid was off the charts. You couldn't help but hear his name. He plays for the MVP Hustle. Andrew Pyle, who plays, I guess, for the CBA Titans and for SoCal Athletics for his club ball teams. He is kind of different from Darius Perry in that you labeled him lean and strong, where Darius was just big and strong. But one thing I think it should be noted with Andrew, he caught for Jared Jones last year. That to me is a big thing, because if you've got the trust of Jared Jones, you're going to be pretty good.
Right. And let's start with Pyle. And there are similarities, and there's a lot of differences between him and the catcher you mentioned there, Darius Perry, because obviously you start with the physicality, right? Andrew's leaner and stronger, leaner and strong, whereas Darius was, like you said, a big, strong boy. I think defensively, Andrew might be a little bit ahead of where Darius was at the same time in their career. Darius with the bat is certainly ahead of where Andrew is now. But I think Coach Zern loves what he's getting from Pyle defensively, and if he gets some consistency with the bat, he most certainly will take it. And like you mentioned there, I mean, he was Jared's catcher. Jared didn't want to throw to anybody else. And that says a lot. Like you said, when a sophomore is able to handle 97 miles an hour and frame that and position those and get those called strikes, that's significant. Noah Rodriguez, the shortstop, again, another slick fielding shortstop, played there as a freshman and played there as a sophomore, and, kind of moved around a couple of other players that they had there at that position. Does it all, right? A little on the smaller side, reminds me a lot of Rosales, but a little more aggressive at the plate. And he's got some strength, and he's got some sneaky pop in the bat too. And he can run into one every so often, and it goes out of the yard. The other guy that we didn't mention there is the 2023 Alejandro Diaz. I know he was on our list to talk about. Shortstop, right-handed pitcher. We'll do both for La Mirada. We'll play in the infield. We'll pitch for them. He's got some upside on the mound for sure, but I think it's a little too early to tell what he will do in college. But they really like the bat on him. Diaz can really hit, James, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch these guys, because like you said, Zern is probably one of the most competitive people I've ever met. I can only imagine what a family game of Monopoly is in the Zern house, because he's probably getting after it with his kids. But he speaks very, very highly of Diaz. And, I remember he called me summer going into Alejandro's freshman year. He's like, man, we're getting this kid. You're going to want to see him. Sure enough, it's borne itself to be true.
You are right. Jimmy is one of the most competitive guys on earth. I'm just going to leave it at that, but in a good way. I think, right. You got to have those type of guys. I mean, if you don't, that's another conversation for another time, so to speak. Hey, talk to me about this player from Santa Fe. I know they love him a lot too. And Ryan Brown, he's ranked as part of your 2021 rankings, and he's going to Long Beach State.
Yeah, another guy who is a big bat, and the bat is really the carrying tool right now. He is also 88 to 90 on the mound, so I don't think Long Beach is going to close the door on a kid who's able to do that potentially. But they're definitely buying the bat at this point. It's a big power bat in that league, and I'm sure that'll translate when it gets to Long Beach State. He can play the outfield, he can play first base, so that provides some position flexibility there for Long Beach. And then again, you don't want to close the door on him potentially pitching as well.
One other player from the East San Gabriel Valley we want to talk about quickly here, Les, is at Walnut High School, and I can't wait to see this kid play this year. I've been hearing a bunch of buzz about this kid who's going to Cal State Fullerton. He's committed to there, and that is, I believe he's a class of 22. I'm going to be corrected here with, and that's Casa Diaz. The first note I noted about him, other than the fact that he played for the West Covina Dukes, pretty big at 6'3", 160.
Yeah, this is a guy. He is, we're not supposed to play favorites, at least not say it out loud, but he is one of my favorites. Just a phenomenal human being, first of all. And then you see him on a baseball field and you can't help but love what you're seeing. He reminds me a lot of another guy that played at Cal State Fullerton, Michael Lorenzano. Similar frame. Lorenzano was pretty lean like that. His going into his junior year, like Pyle is. On the mound, Pyle has a chance to be very special, to be quite honest, right? I mean, it's up to 90. He's got 3-pitch mix. He commands all three, but he also has a 92-mile-an-hour outfield arm, and he can really swing the bat. So this is a guy who I think is going to go to Cal State Fullerton and do both, a lot like Lorenzano did, and let the pro scouts decide what he is in the future, right? But I know, just in talking to my buddy Steve Dye, the pitching coach there at Walnut, he has said that he just absolutely loves what he's seeing from Kyle. Just in the few practices that he's been able to see him, and you're going to be really, really happy you went out to see Walnut High School when he's pitching, or even when he's playing in the outfield, because I guarantee you he'll hit when he pitches. So you'll get to see him there. He's just a quality player. And one note, I know we've talked about the rankings here. We are in the process of updating those. So if we would have had this call here in about 2 weeks, we probably would have had a whole lot more guys from your area to talk about.
That's okay, because they have an opportunity to do that, and we're going to talk about that at the end of the video, on which how they could get all your stuff. That's what we call a teaser. Okay, in our business we call that a teaser. Okay, and I just want to mention on Steve Dye, he worked with Darren Murphy over at South Hills. He's one of the top pitching coaches in the San Gabriel Valley. I really respect the work that he does. He does an outstanding job with any type of talent. He knows how to get the most out of a pitcher, so to speak. So I think Walnut's picked up a good pitching coach, so to speak, in him. All right, Les, let's take the evaluator hat off and put your salesman hat on. Here it is, folks. It's the website. It's prepbaseballreport.com. How can we subscribe, Les? We've talked about it for a half an hour, all these players and all that. Talk to me, my friend. What do we do here?
Yeah, well, firstly, for all the players listening, you can go in there, and if we don't have a profile on you, you can create a profile for free. It's pretty simple. We can
fantastic.
That way we can have a profile on you. You can add any notes that, when we see you. Like you said, the URL is prepbaseballreport.com/California. You go in there, you check it out. We do a lot of stuff for free. I mean, we don't put every article behind a paywall. We do the majority of our articles are free. You can read a lot of stuff on there. We do have some subscription only material and content that we put on our website. You can subscribe for as low as $99 a year. There's a $10 a month option as well. If you want to try it out and see, hey, I like it or I don't like it. There's a lot of different options there, to subscribe and read our content. We have a team of about 6 to 8 of us across the state, trying to cover every corner of the state. And once the high school season picks up, certainly our coverage will pick up. We've been doing a lot of events here the last 3 months. And so there's a lot of content on players with video on there where you can take a look at those reports and those evaluations and those stories and all that.
I endorse it. It's just what it is. I mean, it's great stuff. And I endorse products with guys who are out there getting their hands dirty, getting their stuff done in the right way. And I think you guys do it. It is for me. You cover multiple sports. You're always looking for that one or two places where you can get coached up, get the top players, and pretty much know you're set for the season. And I cannot recommend it highly enough. Les and the staff do a great job. Les, you are the man, and I cannot tell you how much I am appreciative of your time, my friend. And I look forward to seeing you the upcoming baseball season. And I know I'm excited. And you're part of the reason why now. This was probably the best 40 minutes I've had in a couple of weeks, my friend. And I appreciate your time.
Hey, James, man, I can't thank you enough for having me, dude. Like I said, this is a treat for me. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. And like I said,
thank you.
Our burgeoning friendship here is just awesome. And I'm always grateful for that. But you guys do phenomenal work, and this is kind of the time of year. I mean, right? We're February 19th. I mean, we would be into the first week of the season. Hey, if we've got to wait another month, I'm okay with that. As long as we're able to do it safely and doing it in a manner that is under the guidelines of the state and everybody else. But I'm excited. I do believe that there's going to be some sort of season this year, whether it includes a playoffs or not. I do believe that there's going to be some sort of season for these spring sport athletes, and particularly baseball. And I'm just excited to get out there and see it, and obviously get out there and run into you and catch up in person. Oh yeah, for sure. And you've got a dinner on me coming from probably sometime when we get together. Anytime I can swipe my Visa card, it's a good thing, because you truly have helped guys like myself out a lot, and it kind of makes us look smart. All right, well, it's always good. Please. Here's the deal. We got to go now. But before we go to there, that play like a champion thing up on top there, for USC guys like myself, we don't like seeing that up there too much. So I'm just throwing it out there. I've caught grief for that my entire life living in SoCal. It's okay. But hey, this is part of the plan. But here's the deal with that dinner piece. Yeah, we got to go to your go-to hole in the wall spot for a breakfast burrito. Deal. Boom. Deal. Done. Deal. Done deal. I'm good. Deal. I'm all about the hole in the wall spots, man. Yeah. Well, there's one in LA that I will go to, that is now kind of my place. I will email you, during that time, and we will. It is a I call it a life altering experience. That's all I'm going to say. I like those. All I'm going to say. I like those. Les Lukach is with PrepBaseballReport.com. Les, my friend, thank you. I appreciate your time, sir. Thanks, buddy. Really appreciate it.